तो सात पैरों से धोखा. Hershey will tackle the subject of infidelity. Hershey is a literature major from the University of Nairobi. She was born in Kenya. And she taught for several years, both in Kenya as well as England. And then she worked in Canada as a technical writer. And in California, she has been a freelance writer. She is a poet, published poet, and is working on an anthology of short stories at the moment. So Hershey, the mic's all yours.
Thank you all. First of all, I'd like to talk about infidelity. And we've listened to Kiran talk about domestic violence. And after a woman goes through the kind of domestic violence that's portrayed in Saat Phero Se Dhokha, I don't think there's anybody who would blame a woman for infidelity. A woman has emotional needs, she has physical needs, and when these needs are not being met by her husband, on the contrary, when she's being exposed to violence and abuse, one would say that she's perfectly justified in infidelity. Infidelity, by definition, at least in the Western cultural aspect, is related to sexual betrayal in a relationship. But beyond that, there is an emotional betrayal as well. In Hindi, it is also defined as abhakti, or ashraddha, or avishwas. And this emotional betrayal, this emotional infidelity ends up causing a lot more pain than physical abuse. The protagonist of the novel, Rita, makes every effort to fulfill her duty, her dharma. Like many Indian women, she is taught when she gets married that beti hamari izzat rakhna. And this is something that leaves a mark on her psyche, and no matter what she goes through, she's always conscious of this advice that she cannot leave her husband because unki izzat rakhni hai. Her dreams of romance with her husband break right after her marriage. As she says so beautifully, सुहाग का दुपट्टा अभी सर पर ही था कि उसमें छेद नजर आने लगे. And these holes, these shades, get bigger and bigger as his violence continues to increase. Yet she is unable to break her emotional attachment to her husband. She has a misplaced sense of duty and devotion to a man who typifies the abusive husband, a repentant lover one minute and a violent beast the next. After leaving him several times, she encounters several men. There is Prakash, the photographer, there is Dr. Roy, and most importantly, there is Ravi, who is the ultimate flirt, who hones in on her weaknesses and tries to take advantage of her naivety and her innocence. Each of them thinks that she's fair game for their artificial flattery and attention. But Rita, although she is aware of Ravi's reputation as a playboy, finds in his attention the love and the affection that she thinks he's offering her. What she craves is love, physical and emotional. Ultimately, she stops short of consummating it with him. She keeps leaving him just like she keeps leaving Sudhir, but keeps returning to him. It's called typically the abused wife syndrome. And a lot of people, as you pointed out, don't understand why an abused woman keeps returning, but that's another chapter altogether. There's something that keeps bringing you back because there is a vast fear of the world and of making a fresh start on your own. Especially when you have kids, it is very, very difficult to take that ultimate step. In her own words, she says, प्यार की प्यास में इंसान एक कठपुतली बनकर रह जाता है. तृष्णा और इच्छाओं ने इंसान को भटका दिया. From her own guilty perspective, she thinks of herself as having been unfaithful in thought, even though not in action. She never loses sight of the fact that she is a married woman, and thus she feels that she is not free to pursue a relationship with any other man. As far as Sudhir is concerned, Sudhir is her husband, the most infidelity is actually demonstrated by him. Not only does he betray his marriage vows, he proves himself to be a bad husband. He tortures his wife physically and mentally. He betrays the trust of his children, abandoning them to a cruel world, does not support his wife, and she's left to fend not only for herself but for kids as well. Now vis-a-vis Sudhir, you have Ravi, who caters to Rita's emotional needs, but at the same time, his prime motive, of course, is to get her into his bed. He says all the right things to her, and even goes as far as offering her marriage. But she sticks to her parents' advice and keeps the respect that her parents wanted her to keep. She maintains a steadfastness that is admirable, even in the face of all the adversity that she faces. And there's an almost rigid adherence to a mistaken sense of right and wrong. And this is what keeps her from committing that final act of betrayal, at least from her perspective. And eventually Ravi, of course, loses interest and his own ambitions take over. But even in that, he uses her and takes a gold necklace from her in order to pursue his ambitions. And of course, Rita, she thinks of this as the price, as the material price that she had to pay to get that false love for a little while. So yes, even in this relationship, she faces infidelity. But the character of Rita, though naive and innocent in many ways, is very practical in other matters. She knows she's responsible for her kids, and she undertakes a lot of jobs or assignments like modeling, acting, not only for herself but for her kids as well, so that she can secure their financial future. Sometimes she thinks she's frustrated enough to think that her children are her fetters, but at the same time, she knows that they are all that she has, and she will sacrifice everything for their sake. As the children grow up, there is a light of hope offered by the writer, and there is a promise of fidelity, love, faithfulness, and sincerity in the relationships that are pursued by both her kids. And a repentant Sudhir eventually does come back to her, but cynical that I am, I'm left wondering how long he's going to be the repentant lover. Thank you very much.